Hello everybody and welcome back to the final update for the Boneshatter Slayer League Start Guide in patch 3.27. We are officially 2 weeks into the build and boy oh boy has it been a roller coaster ride. We went from having a character that breezed through the campaign, blasted Atlas progression, and kind of started to struggle to break into T16 8 mods and T17 strategies. But we persevered, we invested a lot of time and currency into this character, and we finally have something that is performing quite well in the end game setup. Time for a disclaimer, guys. This build has more than a mirror worth of divines invested into it at the time of making this video. We have a Mageblood, we have jewels that cost dozens of divines, we have items in slots that have been optimized and cost more than their base variants. We have so much going on with this build and I cannot wait to share it with you. But with that said, this level of investment is for the Bone Zone enjoyers only. This is not something I recommend you to do. It is what I did and is what I'm going to show you, but like I said, do not spend this much money on the build. Instead, look at the week 1 update for a budget version of this setup, and then you can use that setup to farm currency for your next build, which is going to have a lot more bang for its buck when you invest into the build to the extent which I did. Alright, with the disclaimer out of the way, let's talk about some of the stuff I've done on this character. We've killed all of the Ubers at least once. We have done T17s, we have done T16 8 mods, we have delved to depth 500, we've killed Crystal King at 476, and all of this for the most part has felt really comfortable. But with that said, the build is not without its problems. We are a fortification, endurance charge stacking build. We also rely on leech for our defenses. This is 3 conditional layered defenses, which means that if a boss goes into immunity phase, you will have no defenses. Your endurance charges will drop, your fortification stacks will drop, you will be unable to leech, you will be sitting there vulnerable, feeling as if your character just got out of the campaign. Alright, so with that said, some of the Uber bosses are going to be easy, some of them like Uber Cirrus are going to be exceptionally hard. What this build does excel at is mapping. While our clear might not be multiple screens at a time, our mobility is extremely fast and we can run a wide variety of map modifiers, meaning that our character saves currency on rolling maps and feels pretty consistent no matter what mod we happen to be running. With all of that said, let's get into the gear upgrades we've made. I'll see you guys in game in just a second. Alright guys, we are in game now. Let's start talking about the gear upgrades, starting with the biggest, most expensive ones first, and that is going to be Mageblood Unique Belt. This one has some pretty good rolls on it, the most important roll of course being leftmost 4 magic utility flasks are constantly applied. I've taken off the flasks for now just to put them in later because it's a little bit of an eyesore when you were sitting in your hideout. Alright, you have all of these things active. It kind of takes away from the really cool microtransactions we got from finishing the challenges and the Kirek Pass. So let's go over the flasks and what they do. Alright, first of all, we've gone with the Granite Flask. This is a character that relies on armor for its defenses. We need armor to mitigate trauma. We need armor to mitigate damage from enemies. So we need a lot of armor on the build. For that, we need a Granite Flask. One of the suffixes I recommend you have in your Mageblood setup is going to be Reduced Effect of Curses. This is going to make your character curse immune when you put it on. Right, so there's our Granite Flask. Next, we have a Basalt Flask for the exact same reason. This is going to give you more armor. This is where I've put my increased armor suffix as well. So the Basalt Flask combined with the Granite Flask is going to give us tons of armor. You can see here if I go to defenses, okay, without any of our flasks on, we have 23k armor. With the Granite, we have 32k, and then with the Basalt, we have 61k, which is actually pretty insane, right? Later on, we're going to have even higher armor, I think at upwards of almost 100k. We'll be getting that from our Forbidden Flesh, Forbidden Flame setup, which we will go over later. Right, next we have a Silver Flask. This is going to be where we get our chance to avoid being shocked from, right? This is going to give you Onslaught, and with the extra Flask effect, you're going to have Onslaught applying at twice the effectiveness that it normally does. This is going to give us mobility, this is going to give us attack speed and damage. It's just a really nice flask to have. Last but not least, we use an Amethyst Flask for Chaos Resistances. You'll see here that our Chaos Resist right now is only 19%, right? We've also rolled additional elemental resists on this flask, so we can get elemental resist cap as well as chaos resist cap by slotting this in. Right, with that in, you can see I have 75% all resists, and that feels really nice. Alright, for those of you guys that have never played with a Mageblood before, quality on your flasks does not matter. What does matter is that it has the increased effect prefix. That is going to be 25% increased effect. And then you use Enkindling Orbs, that is this orb right here, to get flask effect on it. Again, you need 70% increased effect of flasks on the enchant, and that is going to give you almost double effectiveness on your flasks, and it's going to make your flasks always active with Mageblood. Our next upgrade is going to be the Celestial Brace Unique Gloves. This is a drop from Uber Exarch. It is quite expensive. Let's look at the price right here for any of you that might be curious. It's super nice that I can actually look at this in-game now. So maximum fortification, one that gives you 10 to max fortification, so max roll is going to be 19 to 20 divines, depending on whether or not it's corrupted. Right, I paid 21 divines for mine a couple days ago, and this is going to give you, like I said, plus 2 maximum fortification. It's going to make your melee hits from your strike skills fortify. I actually didn't know that only applied to strikes. I thought it applied to all melee skills, but so we lucked out on that. And it's going to give you increased attack speed per fortification. Right, this combined with the Forbidden Flesh, Forbidden Flame setup from the champion is going to make our character extremely fast and extremely tanky when we have our fortification up. Having fortification from hit from these gloves also frees up one of our gem sockets. I believe we've swapped out Fortify support with Awakened Melee physical damage support, so this gloves also gives us more damage. Next up is the combo with the Celestial Brace, and that's going to be the Forbidden Flame, Forbidden Flesh jewels. We are taking the Unstoppable Hero Ascendancy from the Duelist Champion. So once again, we can do a quick price check here. I'm going to do Forbidden Flesh. Actually can't look this up in the in-game trade because the search perimeters are a little bit dicey, but these jewels have dropped down in price massively, guys. I paid several divines for the Forbidden Flame, and I paid like 13 divines for the Forbidden Flesh a week ago. These are roughly 2 divines each at this point in the league, so if you've been following along and you've been meaning to try out these jewels, it is now more affordable than ever. For just a couple of divine, you can have this godly node from the Champion Ascendancy. So what does Unstoppable Hero actually do? I can't show it here, which is a little unfortunate, but it gives you increased attack speed per fortification you have above 20. It also gives you 3% more armor and evasion per 1 fortification stack you have above 20. So at the end of the day, our character reaches 42 fortification stacks, which means we have 22 times 3, 66% more armor, and we also have 66% increased attack speed from the Unstoppable Hero node. All right, and of course, the Celestial Brace also gives you increased attack speed from fortification, so you get another 42 increased attack speed from this item. All in all, that combo is extremely strong, with the only complaint being that fortification is a conditional defense unless you happen to actually be a champion that lets you apply maximum fortification at all times. Okay, so that is the Celestial Brace Unstoppable Hero combo. In addition to that, we also are using a Lethal Pride Timeless Jewel. This is to gain maximum fortification stacks on our character. So in this socket right here, the specific one that I have is giving us +1 maximum fortification from Cleaving, from Slaughter. We also get one from Aggressive Bastion, and we get one more from Inexorable. I think you can get up to 5 or 6 in this little cluster, but that involves getting some of these other nodes and also getting a really good seed on your Lethal Pride Jewel, right? So we went for something a little bit affordable. This was something like 1 divine when I bought it. We get +4 fortification stacks. We also get some other goodies like 4% increased maximum life, 20% increased physical damage, as well as added strength through all of these little nodes, which is really nice because that solves our strength problem needed to equip our Royal Plate base. Okay, we have tons of strength now. So what else changed with jewels? We got ourselves a new Watcher's Eye. Let me zoom in right here. This is basically the same one we had, but now it has a cannot be blinded while affected by precision. This lets us run one more map modifier when we are rolling for maps. Normally blind would break your accuracy and it would make it so you lost a lot of damage because we run precise technique. With this 2 mod Watcher's Eye, we are now immune to blind, and our impales last 2 additional hits while using Pride. Alright, and then over here, something new to the build is we've added the Thread of Hope. This is a very large ring radius. It's going to allow us to allocate these nodes over here, Disciple of Slaughter and Disciple of the Unyielding, as well as Hematophagy. Right, if you have one more point, you can also spend it on Testudo for some block chance. but we don't really have that point, nor do we really rely on block for our defenses on this build. So what do these nodes do? Hematophagy is going to increase your total amount you can leech at any given time. This is going to help us be a little bit more survivable while leeching and help us sustain trauma stacks. Then we have Disciple of the Unyielding. This is just 8% increased damage per endurance charge. We will have 7 endurance charges, and then Disciple of the Slaughter is the exact same thing. For frenzy charges, we will have 7 frenzy charges. So 8 times 7 is 56. 56 times 2 is 112. All right, to accommodate all of these passive nodes, we did have to level up to 100. We also had to remove some points from Hatchet Master here. Since we get so much attack speed from our Celestial Brace combo, we don't really need these nodes right over here. So we've removed this and we've used it to get jewels and other goodies instead. Oh, I almost forgot. We have a Runegraft of the Bound here. This is to combo with the Celestial Brace. It makes it so you get 20% reduced bonuses from your boots. We're using Ralakesh unique boots. And it makes it so you get 20% increased bonuses from your gloves. So instead of 10 fortification, we are getting 12 fortification from Celestial Brace, and that is really nice. All right, our Cluster Jewel is the exact same one we were using from last week. The 2% increased attack speed modifier here is completely useless. We already have 102% increased attack speed just sitting in base. If I put on my Silver Flask, we'll have even more. And then if I get my fortification stacks, we will be in upwards of 200% increased attack speed. We attack very fast on this character, so this node right here could be replaced with resistances, stats, or anything else you think might be useful. Or you can save up for the Cluster Jewel that gives your axe hits +2 rage on hit, and that is going to let you get back this mastery point here, so you can spend it on something like more damage or more AoE, or even enemies killed by your hits are destroyed. Right, so those are the changes in the passive tree. And last but not least, we've put an Abyss Jewel over here. This is going to give us maximum life as well as chance to gain phasing on kill. I'm not sure how I feel about this one yet. It feels okay. I really like having phasing when I delve, but otherwise it's not really a problem. You kill things around you super fast in maps, so the phasing doesn't really do much. So this is 2 points being spent here. Maybe there's a better jewel for us to get, or maybe we can get phasing from here and then slot in, another unique jewel over there, right? All right, and that's it for the jewel changes. I wanted to talk about items and jewels, but we went on a tangent and talked about passive tree as well. So I'll consider that done for the update video. What else is new? We are still using Ralakesh Impatience boot. This one can be corrupted to have increased movement speed. We are using Winterweave Coral Ring still. This one can be catalyzed to provide more resistances or life. All right, and then we've upgraded our rare jewelry, so we needed more intelligence on this build to accommodate a higher level Arctic armor and punishment curse. So I went ahead and got this necklace over here. We've got life, we've got resist, we've got +1 to all physical skill gems, and then I've bench crafted fire and chaos. As you can see, this is only a 5 mod item, so you can actually look for a 6 mod item with something like plus physical attack damage. For our ring, we have damage taken recouped as life fractured onto the ring, and then we crafted it using fossils, I believe. I'll have to check and see what fossils I used. I think I used a powerful chaotic resonator. This lets you put 3 things in, and I think I wanted more attack modifiers. I don't even have that fossil anymore, but there is a fossil that gives you more attack. And then I put no elemental, so we took corroded fossil, right? And then I think I wanted more life. So is it pristine? Yeah, so we did pristine, we did corroded, and then we did the other one that gives us attack modifiers, and you put all of that into this resonator and you roll it onto the ring. It's going to give you a high chance of getting life, accuracy, and then the other thing we want on it is a little bit of intelligence to help us get that intelligence roll. Right, alternatively, you could also craft this using essences. So let's see here, there should be an intelligence essence. I don't have a deafening version of this, but deafening essence of spite will give you intelligence on the item. You're looking for life and you're looking for accuracy on this ring. So that's how that was done. We've catalyzed it so we get increased life and increased damage taken recouped as life. So that is the ring upgrade. Right, what else is new? Helmet is brand new. We have a helmet with a higher life roll. We have some cold and chaos resistances, and then we also have accuracy. Okay, we do not need the chance to avoid shock on our helmet anymore because we have have that from Mageblood on this flask over here. So that opens up a suffix, and that lets us get another resistances. For our shield, we are still using the Flawed Refuge. This one has been working out incredibly well, especially combined with the increased armor from our granite, our basalt, and then our fortification stacking. This is converting 40% of our elemental damage from hits, and it's making us taking it as physical damage instead, meaning that our armor gets applied to it. Now, this is going to lower your overall elemental max hit. So if there's a big, massive elemental hit, it's going to actually kill you a lot faster because you are converting some of that to physical. On the contrary, what we gain is that it's going to completely mitigate those smaller hits. Right? 40% of small hits is going to completely get mitigated by your armor, and the remainder is going to get mitigated by your endurance charges, your resistances, and all of that. So this shield, I still stand by it. I think it is an extremely nice shield, and it also makes you a little bit more resilient to annoying modifiers like minus max res or elemental penetration. Right, if you're looking for an upgrade in this slot, you can get a corrupted version. We can do a quick price check on how much that would be. So let's do Flawed Refuge, and then we will go to stat filter. You can use Tilt, Implicit, and then critical strikes. See if anything shows up here. There it is. You take percent reduced extra damage from critical strikes. I expect this to be very expensive, 30 divines, and there's only one in the market. Okay, so maybe this is something you can buy the base and then corrupt it in Alva Temple yourself, try to get a good roll. That would be really nice, and then we can get a little bit more crit mitigation on this character. Speaking of unique items, guys, look at this beautiful Soul Taker Siege Axe. This is a 30% quality Soul Taker with very high rolls and a tempered orb used to get increased explicit physical modifier magnitudes, right? Let me show you the Soul Taker Siege Axe I had before. So we'll go to the Axe tab over here, type in Soul Taker, right? So this was my well-rolled Soul Taker that I've been using in the budget version of the build. I think this one was a couple of divines. We can once again check the price of all of these items just in case you are wondering, and it is also gone down in price. Holy crap, everything's just dropping in price. Right, this one, 5 divines for an unidentified version, 5 divines for an uncorrupted version. In case of maybe this 2 divines is just because it's corrupted, and yeah, that might be it. Okay, so 5 divines for that base, and then we have a god tier one here that we've made from Omen of Fortune on a 30% quality base. All right, and then you can make this even better by Tempered Orb spamming it until it gets 15% increased explicit modifiers, but we don't have that kind of money. All right, we ended up spending a lot of our money on Uber attempts and doing some other stuff, so yeah. Last but not least, we have to talk about our Eldritch Implicits. Our chest plate is the exact same chest we got on day 2 of the league. I got this for 2 divines, and I think things like this are starting to cost a little bit more as people get more currency in the league, right? So this does have an open suffix right now, and what I could do is I could use a Foulborn Exalted Orb, but the problem is doing that has a high likelihood of rolling life regeneration. If I get life regeneration on that mod, then I've bricked the chest because that no longer will work with my life mastery. All right, so I don't want to take that risk. The build is performing fine just is. Maybe I'll get enough money and I can buy a new upgrade. All right, but what I do want to draw your attention here to is the Eldritch Implicits, because they are very, very important. All right, we've swapped from +1 maximum resistances to gain an endurance charge every 11 seconds. Now you might be wondering, why the hell do I need endurance charge generation when we already have Inexorable? Remember, the Inexorable procs off of our trauma, which means that as long as we're in combat, we're constantly generating endurance charges. The problem here is that endurance charge is a conditional defense. When the boss goes into immunity phase, your endurance charges are going to drop because you're either not taking damage or you're unable to hit the boss and generate endurance charges with your Boneshatter. So how do we fix this? We need to gain an endurance charge every 11 seconds, guys. 11 is a big number here. You need to Orb of Conflict it to 11. 12 will not work, and that's because our duration on the charges is 12 seconds. Bam! Okay, you can see 12 seconds is the duration of our endurance charges. So once you get to 7 endurance charges, you will never lose your endurance charges unless they are stolen from you by a map monster modifier, okay? So that implicit is extremely helpful. It makes our character a little bit better for those boss fights that I told you about. We've also upgraded the physical damage from hits taken as cold damage. Right? This is currently on a Grand Ichor. That's going to take a little bit of Ichor spam to get there, but this is what our endgame chest looks like, right? And then for our helmet, we have the same thing here, the same mods as before, but we've upgraded them with better embers and ichors. We have 12% of physical damage taken recouped as life, and we have 7% of physical damage from hits taken as cold damage, right? And remember, you want this to be cold damage because that is going to chill you with your trauma damage, and you're going to get an action speed modifier for using the Winterweave Coral Ring. Right, I think that covers everything in terms of gear upgrades. In terms of gems, we have a cast when damage taken setup finally put into the build. We have Molten Shell, we have Punishment, and we have Life Tap support because our mana is all going to be reserved once I put my auras on. Let's go ahead and do that right now. So we'll put all of our auras, and you'll see we have no mana. So if you don't use Life Tap, this will not work on your cast when damage taken setup. Remember that the Soul Taker's Siege Axe only makes it so that your insufficient mana doesn't prevent your melee attacks, okay? Spells does not work on this, ranged attacks does not work on this, so you need Life Tap on things like Frostblink, things like cast when damage taken, anything that uses mana to cast, you will want to convert that into life instead. Alright, and then we have, of course, like I mentioned, put in Awakened melee physical damage support instead of Fortify support. We've qualityed all our gems. I don't think we've corrupted most of them. I don't really care much to do all of that. The last thing I can say is that if you are doing Uber fights, make sure to turn off automation when there are eye phases. Otherwise, it's going to sit there and it's going to cast Blood Rage, and it's going to cast it every 1.32 seconds. So you're just going to be losing life and unable to gain it back, and that can get you into dangerous situations, right? The last thing I want to talk about that I forgot to talk about last time, guys, is Grafts. We finally invested into better Grafts. We have Necrotic Reach, Summoning Tollgraft here. The base doesn't really matter. What matters here is non-ball strike skills target one additional nearby enemy. Alright, having that on your graft means that you can free up your attack mastery, and you can use monsters cannot block your attacks instead. Right, that means we can actually drop out of these clusters over here, and then we can just use the mastery here. Now, I do want to rant about something here. There's a lot of people telling you not to use Tribal Fury on Boneshatter. I don't know what they're smoking. Tribal Fury is cracked. Alright, even if it wasn't good for your clear, it's going to let you run one more map modifier. If you don't have this node and your melee skills don't splash, you can't run the monsters can't be stunned modifier. So I don't know who's been pushing to not take this node on Boneshatter builds, but it's complete nonsense, so make sure you take it even though Boneshatter has the built-in explosions, alright? It just means one more map mod, it just means slightly better clear when your stuns don't proc. It's a real nice quality of life to have on this build. Right, I think I got a little bit carried away on that tangent, but Grafts, okay? So, like I said, non-ball strike skills target one additional nearby enemy. That is going to be on one of our Grafts, and then the second Graft is just going to have a little bit of Impale chance, because if I were to take this off, you'll notice that my Impale chance drops below 100%. So without this modifier, we will not be Impale capped, and that's really bad since Impale is a big portion of our damage. Right, perhaps the most important thing here, though, is the skill Violent Desire. While you have Rage, this Graft will periodically apply a buff to you, which grants you a chance to inflict an additional Impale, and also increases the effect of impales you inflict. Alright, this is an extremely good modifier for your single target damage. The skill does have a big cooldown, and it does have a short duration. So on your Impaling Ullgraft, I recommend focusing on increasing the duration and decreasing that cooldown for that skill. Aside from that, what I would recommend you to get on your Graft is going to be an increased percent chance to find your favorite womb gift. For me, that happens to be Ancient, so I can find more unique items from the Genesis tree. Right, if you like Lavish, if you like Mysterious, you can get that instead, but that is the Grafts in a nutshell. And I think that's it. If you guys are curious how things have been going, we have finished the 40-40 challenges. I did that just before recording this video, so we will start working on the 40-40 challenge guide for anyone who is interested. Expect that maybe at the end of next week. I think there are a couple of games coming out this weekend that I want to check out, so I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break from Path of Exile, but that's not where our journey ends. Also, if we go to the Delve encampment real quick, you'll see here that I have delved up to depth 500. I think we can push this deeper, but it's getting a little bit boring to push deeper. I want to go horizontal. I want to farm and see how much currency we can make at depth 500 and see if there's a video we can make out of that. It's also time to start thinking about our next build. There's so many new skills added, and the Grafts actually enable some really cool playstyles. I've seen auto bomber setups, and I've seen a lot of the Foulborn uniques doing a lot of heavy lifting in some of the new builds. So I want to check some of them out. If you guys have any recommendations, make sure to leave them in the comments down below. And with that said, guys, I want to say thank you so much for watching. This build has been an absolute treat to play. Boneshatter Juggernaut was the very first character I used to beat Maven and Uber Elder to get my first 4 Watchstones all by myself. Ever since then, we've improved so much as a player, and it feels really nice to revisit this build on a Slayer, push it even further with a lot more investment, and get it to do Ubers and some of the end game strats. I'm really happy with this league start, and I hope your league start has been good too. But I'll see you guys with a brand new video sometime late next week. Bye!